All right, here we are. Hi, everyone. Back
Hi,
again with
everybody.
another weekly SEO. And today we have Annie Maguire, which we had in the previous year. Annie Maguire is a freelance conversion copywriter with, I guess, over 10 years of experience. I was a little baby then. Yeah, she was featured in Marketing Examples by Harry Dry, as I remember. And there was three times, yeah, there was one research or something like a post which you advised something like write 10 titles, send them to your friends, ignore their opinions, wait for 24 hours, and then ask them which one was remembered, right? I loved it. And I can't just like forget that because it's really important in SEO too, not in just in copywriting, because it's it's the brand name or it's the brand I don't know future. So Annie, tell us something we don't know about you because there is a lot of things.
Well, first, thank you again so much for having me back. It's such a pleasure to see you and talk to you again and talk to your audience. So thank you. Yeah, something about me. Let's see, something you don't know. I love to cook. That's one of my kind of maybe things you don't know. I have been cooking pretty much my whole life. So I have, a pretty good handle on the basics and can make pretty complicated meals at this point. My mom was a pastry chef. So I am just starting to learn how to do more of the baking stuff. That was more of her thing. And she's teaching me some of that stuff. And I also am an aspiring comedy writer. So I do comedy writing on the side of what I do here as a conversion copywriter. So yeah, those are two things about me maybe you didn't know.
Yeah, I guess also most of our audience doesn't know that you have a book, Customer Research, right?
You said a book?
Yeah, ebook or a book. It's something
I
like PDF.
do.
Yeah,
Yes. I wrote a book in, I think, 2016, I want to say, right after I went freelance. And it was inspired because so many people reached out to me because I was sharing my journey about becoming a freelancer through blog posts and stuff. And people reached out and wanted to know more about, becoming a freelancer and what my tips and were. And they had lots of questions. So I figured, why not I just take all of this stuff and put it into a book? And that way, when people come to me, I can just say, hey, go buy the book. That'll help you a lot more than, whatever I can tell you over, a chat message or something.
yeah, definitely. There is a quote, I don't remember who wrote that, but he said that if you have a lot of things in your mind, write them. If you don't have anything, read. Like that.
I
I
love that.
don't, I don't
And it's
remember,
true. It's
right?
true.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. When our mind is overwhelmed, like try to write something, a tweet, I don't know, a blog, and then you can start write a book like you did.
It's true. It's true. Sometimes just to get the gears going, you just have to sit down and start writing and see what comes out. And you'd be surprised that how well that approach works.
Definitely. So let's begin then.
Sure.
Uh, I will ask Annie some questions. And of course, if there is some questions you want to ask, drop them in the chat. I'll be more than happy to ask Annie. So Annie, tell us what's actually conversion copywriting, because it's not something usual. Conversion copywriting, it's something
Yeah.
different.
It is something different. Yeah, it's a great question, honestly. And I think sometimes people are confused. Like, how is copywriting different from conversion copywriting and creative copywriting and blog writing? It's like there's so many different kinds of writing that I think it's good to kind of get clear on specifically what is conversion copywriting. And I will admit, I have a page on my site that's about conversion copywriting, and I did not look at the page to make sure that what I'm about to say matches up with that. But I'm going to go off on a limb here and say that my definition in general of conversion copywriting is writing that's designed to get a user to take a specific action. So that action could be something like subscribing to your email list, or buying a product, or signing up for an event, whatever it is. It's driving that person toward something specific. And the other part of conversion copywriting, to get to that point, is that it's really informed by things like customer research, best practices, psychology, persuasion tactics, that sort of thing. So it is definitely different from other forms of copywriting that might rely more, say, on creative concepts, or maybe the content, it's driven by specific points of content, for a long form blog article, for example. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit more clarity into what conversion copywriting is.
100%. Thanks. So let's go to the next one. I don't know who many times approached to you, but how should CMOs, chief marketing officers, or COO, I don't know, business owner, approach? Because not all of the clients know how to approach a specialist, experts in this area. So how would you recommend to approach to you?
Yeah, such a great question. And one I think more people should be asking, because when you reach out to anybody who provides a service, that person's whole business is, usually tied to time, right? So you want to make sure you're not wasting someone's time when you reach out to them with not offering any information or not being clear about certain things. So I think this is a great question, and hopefully I can give little guidance. I know when people reach out to me, and that ranges from somewhere like a business owner to a CMO to a CEO to an individual, solopreneur, let's call them. And the people that I tend to kind of respond more to and have a better response to are the people who come to me with more information. So for example, what is their conversion goal? What is it they're trying to do? Do they want to get people to buy something, subscribe to something, sign up for something? Do they want, to fix their whole framework to research, whatever it is, coming in with a clear goal, a clear scope, just saying, here's what we're thinking in terms of, what we want from deliverable standpoint. We want a new landing page or an email sequence, or we want to revamp our website, just being really clear about that. I think too, knowing, what are the kind of copy challenges that you tend to struggle with that you want help with? Like, do you have an issue with clarity, or maybe you can't figure out how to translate insights into copy? Just getting clear on that. So that way the copywriter can say, hey, based on this challenge, I can help you. Or, what, I actually think you should go with this other person. They're better at that sort of thing. And then basic stuff like knowing your product, what it is, who your audience is, stuff like that I think seem obvious, but a lot of times people reach out to me and they don't have clear answers to those questions. So that can be, difficult from a person on my side who's saying, I want to help you achieve this business goal. But if you're not clear on sort of the basics, I can't be the person to provide you with those answers. Right. And then finally, I think just being clear on, do you have customer data? If not, do you have access to your customers? Because that's a big one for conversion copywriting. And then knowing who is there to support this project. Is it going to be a developer? Do you have a designer in-house? Do you work with another contractor? Do you need me to bring someone in? I think all of those things are, ironing those out before you try to reach out to someone is great. Or at least having some of that stuff kind of ironed out and then answering whatever questions the copywriter might have for you.
Wow. So if I would like to approach you, then I need a presentation for that.
Or at least be able to answer questions.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess you have that kind of guide in your websites, something like how do you work, not just approach, and a lot of blog posts, of course. So who is contacting you, I guess they will know how to contact you. All right. So why is conversion copywriting important for a brand's ROI, return on investment?
Yeah, such a great question. And especially because, I think that there's sometimes a misconception that copywriting is like anyone can do it and like I don't want to pay for this, so it can be hard for some people to understand the value, right? So in terms of ROI, I think having a conversion copywriter on your team is good because unlike other forms of copywriting, conversion copywriting is focused on results, specific results, right? There's a specific goal and there's a specific way to measure that goal. So that's the first and foremost. You can prove that it is or is not working. Another part is that the way we approach copywriting, it's driven by data and not just like gut feelings or subjective sort of ideas. It's really based on here's what we know about the market, here's what we know about the audience, here's what we know specifically about your customers, and this is what we need to do to communicate with those people, right? And then I think beyond the fact that it's tied to a specific goal and focus on results, it's measurable, and it's driven by data. It's also going to provide you with more of a cohesion in terms of communicating, right? So if you've got someone on your team, and this would apply to all kinds of copywriting, not just conversion copywriting, but in general, having a copywriter on your team is going to make sure that the message coming from the brand and across the channels, whether it's web, email, social, blog, et cetera, ads, is consistent, it's cohesive, it makes sense, it's connected. So those are just kind of some of the reasons I would suggest having a copywriter and maybe a conversion copywriter on your team.
Yeah, definitely agree. And Annie, do you have a team? Do you work with a team or are you just yourself?
So it's just me usually, but I have partners that I sometimes bring into projects and sometimes they bring me into their projects, which is really my preferred approach. I really like working with other people, whether it's another writer or a UX person or a designer or a developer, because that's when the projects really tend to, they're executed properly and you can really collaborate more and come up with like a better solution. So I don't have a team myself, but I have people that I pull in and that they pull me in when appropriate.
Yeah, indirectly. Yeah. So if you would have a team or just a brand team, how would you encourage them to get the best of them?
Yeah. So when, I think I've worked with contractors before, right? And I think this is something that can be applied to working with any sort of service person, contractor on your team. But when you're thinking specifically about copywriting, I think that, you know, prioritizing the work alongside other specialties is always a kind of a good one for me. I think that um, a lot of times companies maybe want to prioritize, say, design or development over copy. And I think that's a mistake. I think going kind of in a collaborative way where you're not necessarily putting one over the other, but kind of keeping them all on an even field and appreciating each of the kind of skill sets that they're bringing to the table would foster kind of more of an environment of collaboration and yield better results. And then I think that, bringing in a copywriter before you get to say like the lorem ipsum phase, I think that's always, I always personally find that like a little insulting when someone reaches out to me and they're like, I have everything done. I just need you to fill it in. It's like as if my job is just like a fill in the blank kind of thing. Whereas like, that's not how it works. So I think just like respecting someone's skill set and making sure that you involve them in all stages and knowing that copywriters in particular, they're really good at synthesizing information, identifying patterns and recurring themes. So they're great to bring in at things like research or strategy or even, the initial sort of meetings where you're talking about positioning or stuff like that. So I think that just involving them more in the entire process instead of just like relegating them to the end of the project is another way that I would say you can encourage and involve them more.
Wow. All right. So when and why do a brand need copywriter?
Yeah. So I think that it varies, right? Like it really depends on the stage of the company, your goals, your budget, your own skill set as a writer. Like for example, a lot of times businesses will reach out to me when they don't even have a product yet, or they don't even have customers yet. And for me, my fees are not inexpensive. So I would always tell those companies, look, now is really not the time to invest in copywriting. I think that you should really wait until you have customers before you invest in copywriting. That's just my personal opinion. And of course, that can vary depending on your situation. Like maybe you have venture capital money and you are able to hire a copywriter before you have customers. That could be helpful, kind of getting clarity on messaging. But the problem is that your product is not in a stable place, right? It's constantly evolving and changing. So if you bring in a copywriter, whatever stuff that person is going to write about your product, today might not make sense in a month, right? So it's almost like you're putting the cart before the horse. I think that once you have a stable product, let's say at least an MVP or further, and you have customers proving the efficacy of the product, then you might want to bring in a copywriter to help you refine the way you're communicating the product to people, right? Because I think trying to bring someone in too soon to help you as the founder kind of get clear on things might not be the best approach. And again, just my personal experience having worked in those situations before. But let's say maybe you have the budget and you're not a good writer and you just don't know where to start, then yeah, maybe bringing in a copywriter who, isn't crazy expensive, but can help you sort of refine things and polish things up, or at least get clear, could be a good thing. But if you do have customers and you actually have customer data, right? Like years of customer data or even months of customer data, and you feel like your product is in a good place, it's stable, it's not necessarily changing significantly from here to here, I would say that's a great time to bring in a copywriter. Or maybe you're in a really competitive market and you need a way to sort of position yourself in a way that's different from your competitors. Another great example of when to bring in a writer. But yeah, those are just a couple of examples. Hopefully that was clear.
Definitely. So I took the lesson, measure what matters and invest if there is something you really need to have, right? And also if you have budget. And of course,
Absolutely.
you have over 10 years of experience. Of course, it will be not free, I don't know, optimizations.
Yeah.
In my side, I have the last question, and I guess it might be the hardest one because it's a little bit historical about your mistakes. What's your biggest learnings from your career path?
So I think that the biggest thing that like a mistake that my clients have made and that I have made, so I think it's something that kind of almost universal, is not paying attention to the data, ignoring it, and just going with what you want as the founder, right? So I think that's the biggest mistake. And I have seen my clients do this before, where we do all this research. I tell them, hey, based on the research, I think we need to communicate the product in these ways, but they don't want to do that. They have this something in their head, I don't know what, based on a competitor or an investor or something, or themselves, and they say, no, I think it's going to be this. And I'm like, okay, that I don't agree, but sure, it's your product, go for it. But so I always would be like, oh, my clients, I can't believe they do that. But then recently I went through something similar where I had conducted some surveys to help me position and price and market this product that I launched. And guess who ignored half the data? This person right here. I did. So I think that, and it blew up in my face. I think that I incorrectly priced, I incorrectly positioned. I made a lot of mistakes and it cost me money. So I think that that is the biggest mistake I see clients make. And I know that other people, including myself, make the mistake too. So it's okay if you do it, just learn from the mistake and just going forward, look at the data, use the data, and actually, make decisions based on the data instead of just ignoring it, even though you did all the work to conduct it in the first place,
Yeah. Also, in my sides, the biggest mistake I had in my career is not learning the mistakes from others. Because what I did, there is definitely a few or a lot of persons who did the same thing, and learned and shared it somewhere. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's true.
we have a question, by the way.
Sure.
It's unexpected, but Adam says, what do you think are the metrics or problems that the brands that don't receive this service have the most trouble with?
So, Adam, you're saying, rephrase. Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, he says, what do you think are the metrics or problems that the brands don't receive their service have the most trouble with? I actually didn't get that, but you might.
Okay. I think what he's saying is, if someone doesn't use a conversion copywriter, what are the sort of challenges or metric issues that they might have as a result of not working with someone? That's how I interpreted it. But yeah, if that's the question, I think that a lot of times it comes down to clarity, issues with clarity, right? And that can unfortunately impact metrics like conversion rate or bounce rate, or time spent on page. People just, they don't get it, so they leave, or they don't understand it, so they don't convert, or they don't sign up, whatever that metric is. So I think, yeah, it comes down to clarity a lot of times. It's like, the message itself, in the hero, for example, is unclear, or it's written in a way that doesn't feel persuasive, or it doesn't kind of resonate with me as the audience. It's not connected to any sort of data. It's just like there. Maybe it's just like a simple way to describe the product, but it's not really emotionally capturing me in some way. Or it's not standing out from competition. I think that's a big one, especially in SaaS, in software. It's such a hard, it's something I kind of don't like to work in personally, because it's such a competitive space. You really need to get messaging that is different. It feels different. It, captures the audience. So I think that, yeah, just a lack of clarity that can unfortunately make everything else sort of fall apart. And the clarity doesn't have to be just a message. It could be even the architecture of the site or the page or the user experience. Maybe people can't find the information they're looking for, or the most important information is sort of buried somewhere deep in the site that no one's ever going to see. So it's really kind of, I think, issues with information and not being clear or not being prominent.
Yeah, I hope it was clear, Adam. Thanks for the answer. And there is no questions because it was too clear.
Well, can I ask you a couple questions if we're moving on?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, perfect. So I love this conversation because I feel like, we can talk about conversion copywriting. I know that's helpful for you and your audience. But I wanted to share this with my audience. And I think I wanted to ask you some questions that I think might be helpful for the people on my email list and within my network. So the first question I wanted to know is, do you have any SEO tools that you think every freelancer or small business owner should be using?
Yeah, I would start with Google, with learning how to use Google like a pro, because Google is the most significant SEO tool that you can use in your career. I use it day by day because you can find a lot of things and you can find a lot of tricky things there. So, for example, if you use a lot of different queries on Google, you can type some operators. For example, if I search for a book, conversion copywriting, or something like that, I would include file type PDF, because this search operator helps you to find all the PDFs in the web, which Google sees. So also, there is a ton of settings in Google. For example, you can use for different country. For example, if I use my name in another country, not here in Moldova, for example, in United States, I will see just English search results. Or for example, if I go to Google Russia, from settings, if I set Russia, then I will see just Russian examples in their search results. Yeah. Also, for example, on Google, you can find PAA. This is people also ask. For example, if you search for a query and for a question on Google, Google will show you another people also ask questions. So when you click there, you will see another 3-1 and another 3-1. There is unlimited search queries based on the question you asked on Google. So I will first start how to use Google in a better way to find the results you want. For keywords too, you can use for keywords too, this one. And Search Console. This is the most, I guess, underrated tool because it's free, but not all the website owners use that. A lot of them uses Google Analytics, but not Google Search Console. So I would recommend to use Google Search Console, of course. And for technical parts, I use daily Screaming Frog, SEO Spider, and for technical SEO things, SEO Log Analyzer. So this tool, not just for technical SEO, but also for content SEO, you can find a lot of things. For example, if you drop your website in there, you can find reports based on your titles, descriptions, or I don't know, grammar issues, or page speed metrics, or canonicalized pages, or different kind of things. So this is the top 3 tools I can give for your audience.
I love that. And I have 2 follow-up questions for you. The first is, do you have a resource that you recommend for learning Google Search Console? And then I forgot the other question, but answer that one first, and then I'll think of the other one.
Definitely, you can use Google's developers website. There is a website, developers.google.com, and they have a blog which you can search everything related to Google Search Console, or you just can find support Google, I guess .com it was too. So they have a guide on that, not just text but also videos on YouTube. So when you search on YouTube, Google Search Central, there's a ton of videos for Google Search Console, how to use it.
Got it. Okay, perfect. That's awesome. Thank you. I just remembered the other question is, what would you say, or how important is the balance between technical SEO and like keyword or SEO? Like, how do you, is one more important than the other, or is it just a straight 50-50 sort of balance?
I would say it depends on the industry, but there is, of course, different answer for that. For example, if I am a small business, I would start with content marketing on the website. Focus on a topic, and if you are specialized on that, write about it, what kind of, I don't know, questions your audience might have in their mind. So write down anything that they could be interested in. And when it comes to technical part, it's mostly more important for big websites. For example, for Nike, for Amazon, for Airbnb, for cinema sites, etc. So technical SEO is more important for big website. And there is, of course, a lot of different subtasks under technical SEO. And that's it, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And that actually kind of segues into another question I was going to ask you about SEO and the importance of blogging. Because, you know, a lot of the people in my community, they are, you know, creating content, right? So I'm curious to know, do you feel like when it comes to blogging, what is the most important thing about SEO? When for blogging and SEO, what's more important? Just being consistent? Like, do you have to blog every month, every week? Is it about the right keywords? You know, what is the sort of formula?
Yeah, if you write every day one blog post, it makes Google to follow your website more often. It makes Google to understand that you're really specialized on that. But of course, Google's AI is really good. It understands if that article, it might have an insight for the users, who is searching for that question. So if you write a lot of different articles, but if they have no sense, for example, there is a lot of keyword stuffing, Google doesn't rank that kind of articles, and it's not matter how many words you include in the article. Google will not rank you better or in the top 3 of search results for that article. So consistency is important, but it's more important to be confident with your audience, because your brand is your reputation. If you write an article in the future, that article will be found by users, and they will say, "Oh, you've wrote that before, but now you say different things." So be aware of that things.
Interesting. Awesome. Well, I have one more question, but I know we're at time. So what do you think? Should we squeeze one more in, or should we wrap up?
Let's split that. Yeah.
Okay.
You can answer. Yeah.
Okay. So the last question is, do you have any SEO courses, books, or other resources that you would recommend for freelancers or small business owners?
Yeah. Personally, I didn't read any SEO related book, and I would say that no book can teach you doing SEO overall, but you can learn a lot of specific things if you choose some specific books. Yeah, there is, like I said, Google's articles. Google have a really document a lot of documents in their website, their YouTube channel, and also we have one resource which the owner is Aleda Solis. I guess you might heard of her. LearningSEO.io. This website features a lot of resources related to technical SEO, video SEO, content marketing, content SEO, and different parts of the SEO. So LearningSEO.io is the one resource I would suggest. And courses, I'd say that the best course you can take is creating a website for yourself and try to do experiments. I do this like for 6 years, I guess. I have a website which I just use for tests and sometimes for blogging. And I learned a lot of things. I learned how to use file manager, FTP, database, htaccess. I did log file analysis. So the best course is the website you will manage, a client maybe, or the website you own. That's it.
Yeah, hands-on experience tends to be the best teacher.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you for answering those questions. I know my audience will be excited to hear them.
Thank you too, Annie. So yeah, that was for the weekly SEO this time, a casual conversation. I hope you liked it. And if you liked, click the like button. Thanks a lot, Annie, and hope to see you sometime.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.